Growing up, I spent a lot of time on the family computer and exploring the internet.
Surf the web, surf the web.
Shut up, Brock, we don't have time.
Now to me, that meant games like Club Penguin, Flash websites like Newgrounds, and if you were a particularly lame child like myself, pages like the Sonic Scene Creator. Now, this won't be a universal experience because not everyone is the same age as me, that's just how time works. But I bring this up because I've been having a particularly stressful time in life lately, and it's had me looking back to the good old days when my biggest concern was missing the Timmy Jimmy Power Hour because I couldn't be left home alone and my mum just had to go shopping at that specific time. You don't understand, Mum, they're from different shows and they're gonna be like in the same show, the same one. I remember getting home, catching like the last 60 seconds of this and being quietly mad at my mum for like a week. Sorry Mum, in hindsight this was an overreaction, but in my defense they was in the same show. Like they're from different shows, but they were in the same one. Okay, moving on. All this reflecting got me looking back on how much has changed online since then, and I gotta say, the history of the internet is a pretty bizarre one that I'm not sure has been entirely for our benefit. Which sounds insane, I know, like am I trying to say that Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Mr. Bezos don't have our best interests at heart? Of course not, that's crazy, look at these guys, they're obviously looking out for me. It has roots much earlier, but the internet as we know it began in the 1990s. Although for the first decade of its existence, it was mainly used for emailing, mapping stuff, and early forums. If you were stuck in a video game in the 90s, you couldn't really look it up. You had to like ring Nintendo's helpline and tell a stranger that you were just too fucking stupid to work out Krusty's Funhouse.
So you're looking for the white sword in Zelda?
Well, I know where it is, but I can't get my hands on it.
Which quest are you in?
The first quest.
Okay, well you know where it is.
Yeah, right.
All right. What you need to have are 12 heart containers.
Right.
And that's the only thing.
Okay, I've got 12.
Well, then you should be able to get it. You just walk up and you present yourself to the gentleman, and he'll give you the sword.
Okay, I might have miscounted on my my hearts.
Or if you had a Sega system, you were just boned. Like go faster, moron, I don't know. Also, I want to talk about what's going on in this clip real quick because there is just so much wrong with what's being said here. Like, I can accept that maybe the guy miscounted and didn't have as many hearts as he thought he did, but the white sword only requires 5 hearts in The Legend of Zelda, so the fucking gameplay coach or whatever is just wrong by quite a large margin, by like 7 hearts. And unless that player has miscounted badly enough that they thought they had 12 when they had 4, then they really should have been able to have grabbed the white sword. I don't know why they were struggling with this. Also, this helpline cost money, and the guys running it clearly just didn't know what they were fucking talking about, so I. Anyway, the internet really hit its stride in the early 2000s with the arrival of Web 2.0. Web 2.0 refers to websites that emphasize user-generated content. Everyday people were able to create web pages, and we were beginning to see use of it as a platform for hosting blogs, entertainment, games, and even social services. Now, I mark around 2009 as when we saw a shift towards the online space we know today. This was when Facebook replaced MySpace as the most popular social media platform. It added the chat function not long after, and I think this really kickstarted the shift to what we now call the internet. But somewhere between Nintendo Power Hotline and Mark Zuckerberg watching all my awkward flirting attempts at the age of 14, there was RuneScape, MSN, Miniclip, just this weird little pocket of time where the internet was a place you went to and not an ever-existing presence in your life. I remember my family getting their first computer. It was a Dell 1, as they all are, and we was on dial-up for a while. It sat on this big fucking wooden... To call it a desk feels disrespectful. This thing was a unit. Now, all I really did at this stage was Google image search my favorite Marvel characters and make these pretty sick collages, if you could call them that, in Paint. Just super pixelated, super low res, but hey, I was having fun. Sometimes I'd make like fake box art. I made one for a Sonic game I came up with in my head where he like goes to space and absorbs these like elemental power-ups that give him like different abilities based on their colors. Wait, and the rest of my time on this machine was just playing Sonic Adventure DX and Scooby-Doo. This one has a fucking crazy jump scare in, by the way, check this out. This is in a Scooby-Doo game for kids, swear to God. So after seeing that, my parents rightfully assumed the PC was haunted and got rid of it. And it was like another year or two before we got another computer. Can you imagine that even being an option? Like, imagine an internetless household being a viable option. I wasn't even asked about it at school. Wasn't bullied or anything. Well, I was bullied, but for reasons unrelated to my family's lack of internet. That was fairly normal still. So anyway, we get a new computer eventually, which is ironically actually an older model than the one we used to have. We literally only got it because a family member offered it to us for free. Otherwise, I think my parents would have happily foregone a PC for a much longer period of time. Point is, little Charlie was now back online, and although this PC was running Windows 2000 instead of XP, that didn't matter to me because the screen was bigger. That makes it better, obviously. There's more screen. Like, what don't you understand about that? Real quick, jokes aside, it is amazing to me how well this thing continued to hold up. Like, this Windows 2000 machine ran pretty much everything that my friends' Windows XP computers were doing just as well. And yet it seems like apps break with every iOS update on the App Store now, so what the fuck's that about? Anywho, this is where I really began to experience the internet and where my earliest memory of a specific web page comes from. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary friends, I would like to introduce you to dandare.org. Now, I had no idea who Dan Dare was. I had heard the name in passing on shows like Only Fools and Horses, which my parents always had running. Anyway, that didn't matter because what really got me hooked when I saw this site was this. I can't really put into words exactly why this was so exciting to me as a child, but these two pages of Mario and Sonic gifs and artwork from across the franchise was just so incredibly neat to me. I genuinely equated this to finding like a treasure trove or something. I just adored these pages so much. Sites like these led to my fascination with tools like Sonic Scene Creator, as I alluded to at the start of this video. Again, kid me just really loved seeing the moving sprites and GIFs, and I loved being able to create my own scenarios. Something else that dandare.org offered was links to Flash games, some notable examples being Super Mario 63, Ultimate Sonic Flash, and Super Smash Flash. These were all awesome, and I spent way longer than I care to admit playing these titles, but the one I really remember is a little game called Koopa's Revenge. I was around 10 or 11 when one of my friends, Joe, broke his toe, or maybe sprained something. I don't know, it's been like over 15 years. Joe's a friend of mine and Luke's to this day, so I know you're watching this, Joe. Let us know what was wrong with your foot. Like, the viewers need closure on that anecdote. Anyway, Joe was unable to play outside at lunchtime, and so he was allowed to spend break in the computer room at our school, and could also take a couple of friends with him, so he wasn't just like this sad, lonely child that only had child-locked pre-YouTube internet to keep him busy. Me and Joe spent pretty much the entire time that his injury was healing playing Koopa's Revenge. And this game was fucking mind-blowing as a child. This was a Mario game that asked us to tear down our preconceived notions of the Mushroom Kingdom, where Goombas were not the enemy, where Toads were the captors and Yoshi's bloodthirsty animals. Our hero, a lone Koopa out for revenge against his sworn enemy, Super Mario. Oh, and there was blood. The game had blood in it, so it was very grown up of us to be playing this. This game had such a stranglehold on us. It's a pretty rough challenge, or at least it was back then, and whichever version of the game we was playing didn't have a save feature, so we couldn't even get past the first world. Eventually, one of us did find a version which had saving enabled, and we finally got a grasp on how big this game actually was. I remember all of us struggling with Luigi a lot, like, holy shit, fuck that boss. We were also fully aware that Joe's injury was healed and we'd eventually be kicked out into the playground again any day now, so we had to finish this game on these specific machines with our save data before that happened. The only other option was to break Joe's foot again. Man, we should have broke Joe's foot again. I don't think I'm alone in adoring Koopa's Revenge, its flaws and all, for what a perfect encapsulation it is of early 2000s internet. It is user-generated content in its purest form, a fan creation that could only exist as a fan creation, and something you would only ever find on one of these websites. Nintendo is certainly never going to put out a Mario game where you play as a Koopa fighting a rogue Mario and Toads that splatter with blood when you jump on them. It's rudimentary, it's simplistic, and it is wildly different from anything you will see on official hardware. It is exactly what I loved about Web 2.0 in its infancy. But fan games weren't the only ones I was playing. I forget if it was Club Penguin or RuneScape that I got into first. They was both thriving around the time we got our second PC. I think Club Penguin may have been slightly earlier for me because I have a pretty distinct memory of signing up for it at my grandma's house on their computer, which I'm pretty sure is because my house was in its no-internet phase at that point. I could probably spend an entire video talking about Club Penguin alone, so for the sake of this one not being hours long, I'll just say that I made a lot of memories here. I think it's super funny that I used to have to use my landline to ring my friend and say, hey, do you want to go on Club Penguin? And then we'd have to agree which server to meet in and where exactly to meet and just kind of hope that that worked out. Or we'd have to ask our parents if we could ring back. And you didn't want to do that. Phone calls cost money back then. They still do now, but in a like it's different now. Anyway, once you was on Club Penguin, you'd become a secret agent real quick by going in the back of the speaker in the disco and then communicate with your friends using exclusively kid-friendly language. My cousin said a bad word on my account when he was around my house once and it got me banned. I never forgave him for that. He doesn't know it, but we're still enemies. Before long though, penguins just weren't cutting it for me. I had to move on to bigger and better things. Knights, swords, and knights. That's why it's RuneScape. I'm talking about RuneScape. RuneScape wasn't just a game, but a social experience in ways that Club Penguin simply couldn't achieve. Club Penguin was founded on the premise of creating a safe space for children to be sociable online, and the creators rather commendably stuck by these principles extremely firmly. The membership system in that game exists because they absolutely refused to advertise towards children and knew that a membership structure meant that kids with more wealthy parents would support the game and keep it free for all children without the use of third-party ads. RuneScape wasn't as strictly for children. Don't get me wrong, RuneScape still felt incredibly accessible and appropriate for me as a child, not to mention it too ran on a membership system, meaning there wasn't any third-party ads, but the way you interacted with other players was a little more lax. You could get away with saying damn in this game. This is the Middle Ages, guys. It's a little bleaker here, you know? This game is obviously slightly more mature in its themes. It's got violence and weapons and a bit of blood here and there. But more importantly, it has much more of an actual game, with leveling systems, armor, enemies to fight, puzzles and dungeons to solve. Club Penguin's chat feature was a novelty that wore off quickly when you got a little older because there's just not much to talk about. RuneScape saw me and my friends talking about our armors, our levels, places to go, enemies to fight. It felt like a much more immersive social experience, one that still has a pretty thriving scene to this day. I'm honestly really tempted to jump back in and try it again, but I just feel like that would take up so much of my time and I'd get absolutely nothing else done, so for my own well-being, I might not do that. The year was now approaching roughly 2008. I was about 13 and we still had a Windows 2000 computer sitting in my parents' room that I had fairly limited access to. This was when I began begging my parents to buy me a laptop for Christmas or my birthday because a bunch of my friends had one and I really needed one. Please, please, please. Eventually, I did in fact get a laptop for Christmas and was over the moon. We was not a wealthy family, so I'm sure this was the result of a lot of hard work on my parents' part, and I was super grateful for this, which I'm sure they could tell because I was never off this fucking thing. With my own personal laptop, I began to start using it for things my parents wouldn't let me install on their PC, like MSN. My cousin did this on her first computer, and she got sent like a nudge, which my dad thought was a virus, I think. I don't know. He claims that MSN broke the computer, but let's just say I have reservations about that theory. And before we move on, I want to give a real quick shout out to Congregate and Platform Racing 2. I played a shit ton of that on my laptop. Absolute banger of a game. I spent many evenings after school playing this with friends. I remember us all really wanting the Santa hat because it let you walk on water or hazard blocks, which was a huge time saver. And it just spawned one day in some fuck-ass map I made, designed to be nothing more than just like a troll level. It was nothing but bombs, so what was meant to be me and a friend messing around on this stupid race course I'd made became an incredibly tense and, dare I say, volatile competition for this Santa hat. I won the hat, but I've been carrying that gear around with me ever since. So, Dougie, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Anyway, we're now approaching the period in time when things changed. MSN became Facebook Messenger, Newgrounds became YouTube, and Flash games just became like regular video games, like I'd play Halo or something. And even more rapidly than before, things started to change again. No longer content with just friends watching our every move, we started letting strangers know as well. We started getting opinions from people we don't care about, but simultaneously get mad at when they don't agree with us. Ads were everywhere, content creators rose up, sponsored content soon followed, and perhaps most importantly of all, we could access all of this anytime we wanted. You open your phone, you tap on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, TikTok, and you are just surrounded by content that wants to make you mad 24 hours a day. You can't escape it. You have to scan a QR code to read menus, give email addresses for receipts, contact chatbots for customer service. The internet isn't just available 24/7 anymore, it is required 24/7, and that is exhausting. And it also happens to be where we are now. And I know that the knee-jerk reaction to this video is going to be the claim that I'm an old person complaining about kids today and their new technology, but I promise you that's not what this is. Hear me out. I considered my own nostalgia-based bias a great deal when writing this script. And to highlight this, I want to go back to the early 2000s period to talk about one particular part of the internet that I avoided mentioning because I think it clears a lot of this up. And that thing is forums. Forums, for those of you too young to remember, were basically like subreddits having their own dedicated websites. They were discussion boards usually dedicated to one specific topic or fandom where you could connect with other members in those specific communities. They still exist now, quite widely actually, but they aren't used by the general public, and a lot of these fandoms instead just use social media websites like Twitter, which acts as basically one giant forum where anyone can post about anything. And although it's supposed to feed you content from accounts you'd enjoy in similar niches to yours, it does a really fucking poor job of this. And a lot of the time, tweets leave the intended audience and garner attention from the wider public. This was never really an issue with forums in the 2000s because, like, where was they gonna spread? Unless it was a super funny or noteworthy moment, no one was gonna admit to their family and friends on Facebook that they saw this crazy post on a forum for their hyper-specific niche interest. Like, you think I let my friends at school know that I used to lurk on the Sega forums? No, fuck that. I liked having friends too much. So not only did this limit the amount of head-ass users rushing to disagree with you in replies, it also meant that the head-ass users rushing to disagree with you in the replies were at least members of the same community as you, and the weird seething nerd rage was limited to those little pockets of the internet. You didn't have different fandoms, or worse, different political parties being complete arseholes and ruining lives from behind their phone screens because they wasn't even on each other's radars before. Also, you wasn't fucking alerted every time it happened, like holy shit, I don't know how anyone has post notifications on for any app on their phone. With forums, you'd go on your weird nerd site, read a nerdy post, comment on it, and then you wouldn't have to think about it anymore until you next went on your computer and checked the post. And maybe someone had replied to you. That didn't happen a lot because your comments would get buried quite easily and there wasn't any algorithm pushing certain posts to the top to improve engagement. It was just incredibly easy to ignore. Getting into a flame war on Twitter is considerably harder to ignore because not only is the algorithm pushing posts that it thinks will garner attention and garner hate, but also people's phones ping off every time a new hate comment is posted, and the more people that hate it and let Twitter know they hate it, the more people Twitter shows it to. Forums didn't do this, guys. Everything is just designed to enrage us because that's what gets clicks and that's what makes money. This extends from social media to YouTube to news sites. It is relentless, and it honestly just makes me sad for the generation of kids growing up with this internet. When I reflect back on dandare.org, it's actually kind of crazy to me how much this inconspicuous and incredibly wholesome website shaped my personality. Seeing those awesome little animated GIFs and how they resonated with me is what got me into consuming and eventually creating my own fan content. It started a love for pixel art and retro games. It cemented my already growing attachment to franchises like Mario and Sonic. If you're new to this channel and haven't clocked our username yet, it is Charlie and Luke. And that's because I'm Charlie, but there is another half to this channel, Luke. Luke doesn't step up to the mic much really at the moment, but he is behind the scenes a lot in these videos. And me and Luke have been friends for around 16 years now. We've known each other longer than we haven't, and we've done a lot of stupid shit together in that time. One of which was creating creating many failed YouTube channels as kids. We created our own Sonic Sprite animations that never saw the light of day. We filmed our own fan films for franchises that we love. And none of those passions, none of those memories would have been made had it not been for sites like dandare.org, flash games like Cooper's Revenge, user-generated content that taught me, hey, if you like this thing, these characters, just make something with them. Just do it. It doesn't matter if it sucks, if it's janky, if it's not like the real thing. Just do it and have fun creating it with people you care about. When me and Luke pour hundreds of hours into projects that may or may not see the light of day, and trust me, there's been a ton of them, it really doesn't matter if they do or not, because it would have been worth it just for the sense of accomplishment that comes from trying new things that we wanted to try and making memories whilst we do it together. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I worry about what content available on today's internet is teaching kids and what it's inspiring them to create. In a digital world filled with AI, rampant advertising aimed at children, and content designed to please algorithms rather than promote creativity, it's hard not to long for a simpler time. A time when I felt the internet was just right. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you felt like any of this resonated with you, I'm not going to ask you to subscribe. I would ask that you please go and do something with that feeling. Learn that new skill you've been putting off, pick up an old hobby you've been trying to get back into, or create something new just because it sounds like a fun thing to do, and reclaim some of that early internet spirit. Till next time.